The American Midwest, Missouri, Kansas City. 1978. To many outsiders, it's still a Midwestern backwater, best known for cattle trading. In reality, the city is emerging from the shadow of economic recession as a diverse commercial center. Kansas City authorities greenlight a major urban redevelopment scheme. A new $50 million luxury hotel, the Hyatt Regency. The project looks set to shake off the city's outdated cowtown image. May 1978. Builders start work on the 150-meter-tall, 40-story Hyatt. As they begin phase 1 of the build, local engineering firm GCE, owned by Jack Gillum, is still finalizing the hotel's design. This new fast-track approach means the project should be completed much more swiftly than a conventional build. Gillum has a 10-year track record of innovative building projects, but the Hyatt Corporation expects a groundbreaking architectural statement. Turning the vision into a reality will be one of his firm's biggest challenges yet. The hotel centerpiece will be its impressive 44-meter wide, 15-meter high, glass-ceilinged atrium. 3 suspended walkways will span this vast space, connecting guest rooms to a conference center and shopping complex. But then, 17 months in, there's a major setback. A section of the atrium's glass ceiling, the size of a tennis court, crashes to the ground. Engineer Jack Gillum analyzes the problem. He discovers that bolts connecting ceiling panels to the steel roof beams were wrongly installed. But he concludes that the accident is a one-off. July 1st, 1980. Despite the setbacks, the Kansas City Hyatt Regency Hotel opens on schedule. It's one of the city's most spectacular buildings, and the atrium's suspended walkways quickly become a major talking point.
Your first impression was this large, open, airy space and these skywalks seemingly suspended in air, and people went, wow.
Friday, July 17th, 1981. 6 p.m. In the 12 months since it opened, the Hyatt has become one of the city's top night spots. Tonight, 1,500 people crowd into the famous atrium for one of the hotel's most popular regular events, a 1940s-style tea dance competition. As the dancers practice their moves, a TV crew arrives in the lobby. Reporter Michael Mahoney has worked for the local news station KMBC for a year. He's here to film a light-hearted feature item for the evening news. But it's not his idea of a major assignment.
I hate features. I like hard news stories. And I took the job in Kansas City as an opportunity to get into a large American market, and hopefully at some point I would work my way into what I was more comfortable with, which was a hard news story.
On the other side of the lobby, engineer Walter Trueblood and his wife Shirley are enjoying their 8th tea dance at the Hyatt. They've shared a passion for dancing since they were teenage sweethearts courting in the 50s. As loyal customers, Walter and Shirley enjoy special benefits.
The tea dance people had been kind enough to send us 2 free drink tickets, and I never turned down a free martini in my life.
Local mortgage broker Frank Freeman is a first-timer at the tea dance. He's here with his boyfriend of 5 years, Roger Grigsby. They've been looking forward to the dance for weeks, and Roger is in his element.
He was an extrovert. There wasn't anybody he didn't know. He could talk to anybody, and you'd think he had known them for life, and he had just met them.
Meanwhile, Walter and Shirley Trueblood decide against entering the competition. Instead, they join dozens of other couples crowding onto the first-floor walkway, which offers a bird's-eye view of the dance floor 5 meters below. 7:04 p.m. the band strikes up a popular foxtrot, and the dance competition begins. Mike Mahoney's crew films a top shot from the first-floor restaurant. On the first-floor skywalk, Walter and Shirley Trueblood sway to the music, booming up from the atrium. 9 meters above them, dozens more watch from the third-floor skywalk. On the lobby floor, directly underneath the skywalks, Frank Freeman and Roger Grigsby admire the competitors' moves. "7:05 p.m. In the restaurant on the first-floor mezzanine, reporter Mike Mahoney's cameraman runs out of power.
At that point, Dave was setting up his shot, and I reached over into our camera bag to get some fresh batteries.
Then Mahoney hears a noise from across the atrium.
I heard this real sharp metallic pop, pop, and it was a sound that was so foreign to the environment that I immediately looked up.
There was a loud pop, and the floor dropped about 6 to 8 inches. I took Shirley's arm and said, I think we ought to step off. We took about 3 steps.
Mike Mahoney traces the popping noise to the skywalks opposite him.
I was directly on level with the second walkway, and the second walkway began to sag. And it took just a few seconds, but it seemed like forever at the moment. It sort of sagged down, and then all of a sudden, it just dropped.
People watch in horror as the first and third floor glass and concrete skywalks plummet into the crowded lobby.
The upper level came down, and the whole thing went down as an elevator.
You looked at that and went, oh my God.
Dozens of dancers and spectators lie dead, crushed beneath 65 tons of concrete and steel. Hundreds more are buried alive. Unless rescuers reach them fast, many more will die. Moments ago, local reporter Mike Mahoney was capturing these carefree images of a tea dance in Kansas City. Now his video camera records these horrific scenes of devastation.
It was an awful scene. It was just terrible. There were people that were cut badly. There were people that were mutilated. There were people that had had limbs amputated. And there were people that had been trapped underneath these walkways, either smashed to the ground or sandwiched in between. And so it was a gruesome scene.
Stunned survivors make frantic 911 calls.
They need ambulances at the Hyatt Regency.
Part of the lobby fell in on a whole bunch of people. Do you know how many injuries there are? There must be hundreds.
7:07 p.m. 2 minutes since the collapse. Mortgage lender Frank Freeman is in shock. He and his boyfriend Roger were standing beneath the walkways when they collapsed. Frank has been hit on the back and shoulder by falling debris, but escaped being crushed by the narrowest of margins.
When it was all said and done, I was facing the catwalks, and the toes of my shoes were just barely touching the catwalks on the floor.
There's no sign of Roger. A few meters away, lying under the remains of the first and third floor walkways, is property valuer Mark Williams. Just seconds ago, he was getting a drink at the bar. Now he's pinned to the floor under 65 tons of wreckage.
My left leg was up behind my head and up here behind my right ear. My right leg was torn out of the socket and was also laying back up here behind me. So both of the legs are bent behind me and are up behind my head.
Now engineer Walter Trueblood, who was on the first floor skywalk, regains his senses. There's a crushing weight on his chest.
The only thing I could move was my arm enough to pull my tie off, so to give me a little more air.
He has no idea where his wife Shirley is, or even if she survived. 7:17. Firefighters and emergency personnel arrive. They swiftly set up a makeshift morgue in the hotel lobby. Outside, they turn the hotel's taxi rank into a treatment center. In his concrete tomb, Walter Trueblood has no idea if his wife Shirley is alive. Then he hears something.
The next voice I heard was good old Shirley saying, "Walt," and I asked her how she was doing.
I remember Walter was calling me and wanting to know, if I was all right. And we couldn't touch, but we could talk.
Now, broken water pipes, severed by the collapse, pose a new threat to survivors. Water from the hotel's giant tanks is flooding the lobby at a rate of over 1,000 liters per minute. Under the rubble, hundreds of people who survived the collapse now face the prospect of drowning. Mark Williams can feel the water rising.
I'm starting to breathe the water into my nose. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm on one of the highest points in the city of Kansas City, and I'm going to drown to death.
As Mark struggles to keep his head above water, rescuers are helpless to stem the flow. Kansas City's fire chief pinpoints the problem. The hotel's front doors are acting like a dam, stopping the water in the lobby from escaping. He sends in bulldozers. They smash the doors down. Water starts to pour out of the lobby. To Mark Williams' huge relief, the water levels start to fall. 9:30. Over 2 hours since the collapse, Walter and Shirley Trueblood finally hear rescue workers nearby and shout for help. The rescue workers attach steel cables to the beam pinning Shirley to the floor and begin to lift it with a crane. They have to go slowly. One slip and the beam could kill her.
They had been talking with us, and I told them, I said, I feel like I'm about to faint. Would that be bad? And I remember him saying, "Oh, lady, please hang on." He said, "I'm almost there."
At last, rescuers pull Shirley free. Just meters away, another team drags her husband Walter from the rubble, screaming in agony. 10 p.m. Frank Freeman, who was finally persuaded to leave the hotel, is getting treatment at a nearby medical center when a call comes in. Rescuers have found the body of a man. He fits Roger's description. They bring Frank a photo to make sure.
And he didn't look. He didn't look like he'd been hit with anything. I mean, he had no cuts. There are no bruises. It looks like he was just laying there sleeping. And I said, "What happened?" And he had a broken neck.
"2:30 a.m. 7.5 hours after the collapse. Now rescuers are only finding dead bodies. What they don't realize is that under the rubble, someone is still alive. But property valuer Mark Williams is buried so deep that he can't even hear the workmen above him.
I'm getting mad. Why isn't somebody lifting this stuff off me? I'd be organizing a group of people to lift this off of me.
Then he hears something. Rescuers are drilling into the debris directly above him.
I heard someone bang on something above my head, be it the Skywalk or whatever, and I started yelling, "Hey, I'm under here."
But the noise of the jackhammers drowns out Mark's frantic cries. He's survived the walkway collapse and the threat of drowning. Now Mark Williams faces the unthinkable, serious injury or even death at the hands of the rescue workers.
The jackhammer comes through the rubble again, and it goes between my legs. And now I'm thinking, they've triangulated me. The next one's coming right through the middle of my back. And I got braced for it.
Then, as the crew line up the jackhammer for another run, somebody finally hears Mark's desperate cries.
And I remember a guy saying, "My God, there's somebody alive under here."
4:30 a.m. Firefighter Ray Wynn pulls Mark Williams from the pile of debris. Almost 10 hours after the collapse, he's the last person found alive, but he's horribly injured.
You could see the soles of his shoes back here, and he sits up, and I'm like, wow, this guy's alive. I was happy as hell to see him.